nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all over town singing. Whoa. You ain't seen nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all over town singing. Whoa. I think there's something in the water. If you wanna take a sip, but be careful what you wish for. The faint of heart can't handle it. Everybody wants a piece of someone else's prize, but it ain't free, it don't come cheap. Only the strongest will survive. You ain't seen nobody like this. You ain't seen nobody like this. You hear my sound all.
I don't know why this one always does the second one. I'm like, what happened? Welcome to SA Soccer Roundtable. Welcome to, I guess, season 8. Although I was looking at it on the hat, it says incorporated 2018. So 2018. Okay, so 2018. So yeah, season 8.
Season 8.
Episode 1. We were supposed to have a couple episodes, I think, at the end of December and then earlier in January, but unfortunately work, family prevented me from doing it. So we are going to do something kind of odd where we're going to talk about Rafa's preseason pound for pound, or Rafa's power index, depending on top 10. I will say some of his picks already look a little bit bad. Some look good. So keep that in mind, but it is my fault on why we didn't have it. I had it all queued up, but unfortunately just, family and life come first. And with the holidays, I think we're going to try to have a SAFC Fancast because we finally got some news from SanAntonio FC for this year. Since before Christmas, right? I think it's been almost a month since they really came out with any news. So I think on Sunday we're going to try to have one. I know we're going to try to be a little bit more weekly on shows, either Wednesday or Thursday. I think probably seems to be best.
Yeah.
Thursday probably would be the best because there's game on Wednesdays. I know this week's a little bit unique with the weather where games got moved to Thursday. I did do the standings. The standings are up till yesterday, so I know there's games played today for that here, but we will get into it here. Well, first of all, Rafa, I forgot to introduce you. How are you, and where are you? I'm a little bit rusty here, as we can see.
Pretty good. Just here. I'm live from Laredo, Texas. It was nice and hot here, which is a little eerie.
How's hot? How hot? We were 70-ish here in San Antonio.
I think it was like close to 80. I think it was getting close to 80. I was able to be out in shorts after I got back from my visit. So, like I said, the weather's been nice here, except for Tuesday I was in Eagle Pass, so it was kind of rainy and cold, but then everything warmed up. But I'll be back. Like I said, I have one more visit tomorrow, so I'll be at Alexander High School tomorrow. I'll be talking with their students, and then I should be back probably in the evening. So hopefully make it in before that front comes in, because I've been kind of watching the news on that. But internet's working. So I know Coach kind of usually crap about the internet here in Laredo. So
I will say, if you need toilet paper or water, you might want to pick it up down there and bring it back because I guess HEB is out, which it's not HEB's fault.
We got a bunch of knuckleheads out there. Luckily, I have an HEB nearby, so I'll probably, like I said before I gas up,
I stock up anyways, dude.
I'll grab a couple of things.
Stuff, I've got way too much water, but I'd rather have way too much water than not enough water. But moving into the 2026, we'll start with the girls, because that's what I have set up here, and plus ladies first. Honorable mention, you have JP2, Canyon Lake, Bernie, Southwest, and Geneva. Kind of surprised both of the TAPS programs are outside. Not saying you're wrong or right as of yet, but I will say it kind of surprised me when we put together this list.
With the girls, it's just so competitive. It's you just got so many great teams. It's kind of hard to, it's tough decisions on this, and I know it's also a tough one when I do the state ones too, and I have one coming up that took a while. I think it's gonna be a total three. You're gonna see a total 360 next week when it comes out to the updated ones. But preliminary wise, you know, these teams have done well the last few years. Like I said, they're just kind of outside looking in, but that could all change. Like I said, there's going to be some changes next week, but that's what I had in mind. Uh, the one
Beginning of the
team to
year.
really out of the honorable mention to really keep an eye on is that Canyon Lake team,
Mhm.
and so far what they've done, I think they've put some teams on notice, and like I said, and then once you get to the standings, you'll see why. That's a team that's going to be very. I think they're going to make another deep run like they did last year. They may get the job done and maybe represent the region. So, but also, like I said, you can look at Southwest girls. Uh, they've started well too. They're the favorite to win the district. Bernie girls, big surprise last year. Moving up from
Mhm.
4A to 5A. Uh, they're doing well so far. And then, like I said, your Geneva GP2, your Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa of TAPS here in San Antonio. I'm sure they're ready to start their district season and go pound for pound.
They've already started their district season. We'll get to that here in a
Yeah.
little bit here.
So
Number 10, the Lady Warren Warriors, who roughed up the high school closest to me last night, Stevens. I did not update the standings because this is a preseason. For the starter that that Rafa gave me the teams, and I put together. I think it was mid January, beginning of January, before
mhm.
games started playing. So that's why I did not put standings in. We'll update that when we do the regular season power index for that here. But your thoughts on the Lady Warriors?
Yeah, the Lady Warriors had a great season last year, and I think this year, you know, they should be contending again for that top spot for the district. And like I said, I've seen them a few times already, and very dangerous team. And I think they want to build what they did last year, and I'm seeing that this year. So I expect some good things. I think they're in the running with a couple other teams in couple of teams in their district. Um, like I said, I think we'll have like what we had a couple of years ago. We had 2 or 3 teams finding it out. So, but keep an eye. Like I said, Warren's gonna have a. Like I said, their started season great. Well, like I said, when we get to the updates on their power rankings, you'll see where they end up.
Moving on, next is the Canyon Cougar X, Coach Cano's team for that here. Number 9 in the preseason rankings. I put them on my team to watch. I will say, without going into a lot of details, they have had one of the probably toughest schedules so far, boys or girls, I would say, in the San Antonio area. I could be wrong on that. Coach Cano maybe should have scheduled a couple more cupcakes, but that's just me.
Yeah, for Canyon, like I said, last year they had a run. Like I said, they had the coaching change. Like I said, with Coach Cano, and uh, kind of speaking with him, so some good, some expectations, and he didn't shy away from scheduling. I think he's probably has one of the toughest non-district schedules in the state of Texas. He's not shying away. He's proving, trying to get ready for district, and that's what matters really the most. And um, if you can schedule teams that are going to prepare you for the pretty much basically for the grind of district play, and then also possibly see high caliber teams that can get you prepared for the playoffs, and what you're not cut off guard by that game speed, it's going to pay off. And like I said, when we get to the standings, you might see some of the records like, well, why'd you pick them there and this and that. But like I said, it's just a preseason ranking, and once we get to district play, you'll start to see who's a contender and who's a pretender.
My only concern with the schedule is, number one, confidence, especially if you've got a young team. And I don't know if Canyon is or isn't. But two, injuries, wear and tear on that here. TAP's team, the SanAntonio Christian Lions.
Yeah, they've been a consistent team the last few years. I know Geneva and I know JP2 get a lot of, kind of like a little of the press and all that, but SA Christian's been, they've been on it, especially in the last few years, and they've kind of fallen short, in state playoffs, and could this be the year they finally kind of break through and win a state title? I think they have the talent to do so. So we'll see what they have coming this year.
The Reagan Rattlers.
So another quality team, like I said, in that brutal 27-6A. Like I said, it's tough to, to kind of put all these teams all together. And like I said, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And like I said, the Reagan Girls, like I said, they also schedule a tough non-district schedule. They're battle tested, and you'll see what some of the teams they've played too. And like I said, I think that see them, contending for that district title this year. I don't know. There's some other teams that may have a little say, but I think they're one of the favorites that are going into this year.
The Lady O'Connor Panthers.
Yeah, that good season last year. Great, like I said, a lot of expectations this year, and I've seen them play already. Very talented squad. Did have a little setback, but I'll see that save that to later. But like I said, they're going to be in a fight. Like I said, in that district, also with, like I said, I mentioned with Warren. And like I said, I think this year, I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams deep in that 28-6A that are contending for that district title.
Top 5, the Piper Warriors, who have a pretty awesome logo branding badge. I guess the badge is the proper term for soccer. Really like the colors, and so far they are doing pretty good as well in top 5 in your rankings.
Yeah, so Piper, like I said, a little disappointed last year. Like I said, they didn't go deep. They made a coaching change, and like I said, it's starting to kind of pay off here. But like I said, they're in that group of death of 26-5A. When you have like Swenson Valley, and you have New Braunfels, Alamo Heights, Bernie Champion. I mean, that's a playoff game each game and stuff. So you can't take things lightly. But I expect them, like I said, to contend. The one thing is we want to see this year from them is can they get off, knock off that win that second round game, knock off that that pesky 25-5-18 that and they've been going at it the last couple of years. So we'll see what they do this year.
The Lady Jaguars from Johnson at number 4, 6A 27.
Yeah, another quality team. Like I said, kind of right there with like I said, with Reagan, and those are your 2 district favorites. And like I said, we'll see how they do this year. Like I say, if they split, the championship or not. Like I said, I know they're going to be playing soon, but I expect a lot of good things from Johnson this year. And like I said, it's kind of the same thing. Can they get past that second round game as well?
Number 3, and I'll be interesting to see what happens with this team when the rankings come out next. Smithson Valley, I will say, just with the showcase, there's a lot of high praise for the Lady Rangers.
Yeah, Coach Jackson's got, like I said, what a program they have there at Smithson Valley. Deep run last year. Like I said, representing their district, able to kind of knock off that 25-5A team. And I think they have a good shot to go deep again and maybe even win a state title. I think they have the talent enough. I know, you got teams up in the Dallas area, like your Frisco Wakelands, you have your Cedar Parks and all that, and your Highland,
the football team went back-to-back It's
Yeah,
possible.
and that's some inspiration there. So they had some great athletes there at Cincinnati Valley, and I think this year I think they have the team. I think what they've learned from last year, I think they have the team to really go deep this year. Really, like I said, get to Georgetown.
Number 2, Wimberley, 4A26, the Lady Texans.
Yeah. So say what Wimberley last year, great run, made it to the final, just losing in PKs to Canyon Randall. Uh, I think they're gonna have another great season. They're gonna now district wise, they're gonna have some contenders with them, with Canyon Lake, also with Davenport and so forth. Last year, like I said, they went to the Division 2 route, so they could be in that collision course again with Canyon Lake again, and we'll see who will win the region and can Wimberley finally get back to the final and seal the deal and get their first state title.
And then the top ranked preseason power index would be 4A26 of the Davenport team from Davenport, the Lady Wolves.
Yeah, another quality team. Like I said, District 26 4A is no slouch either. I think they're kind of right up there with with 26 5A and also with 27 5A and 6A. I mean, it's like I said, deep run last year. To lose to Salina in a close game, that says a lot. And I'm sure that they want to make that run again and kind of maybe in the collision course with Salina again, kind of deny them that fifth ring before Salina moves up to 5A. So kind of send them packing. So it's like I said, it's going to be I think another great season. I just don't see any other D1 team in Region 4. Like I said, Region 4 that can maybe challenge them. But like I said, there was a good team. Like I said, Laverne kind of kept, they were in it for a little bit because I was there at that game. So that's another team to kind of keep an eye out. They were close to being one of my honorable mentions as well. But like I said, it's pretty, like I said, the girls soccer here, it's pretty stacked. You got some quality teams. They're kind of like real neck and neck. But when you see the updated RPIs, you can see a lot of the different changes.
So, and just like the normal disclaimer we just did for the boys, this is preseason. This was done January into December before the showcase season for that here. So, honorable mention, Brandeis, Harlan, Clemens, John Jay, and Davenport for that here. So, Harlan's the one that kind of sneaks out to me as one that might inch up from this category based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, some good teams last year. Like I said, Clemens went deep last year. Davenport had a great run. I think Jay's kind of be that sleeper team. I know they were disappointed last year. They kind of fell short. I think there's some games that they should have won, and they could have gotten to the playoffs. But I think this year, I think they have a good nucleus to kind of
they'll make the playoffs this year.
They'll get in the playoffs. Brandeis, they were kind of riding high. Then that game against Reagan, everything kind of fell apart there. And can they bounce back from that? Then that's the thing for them. And I know they had a big game here tonight, so I guess we'll see what the results are. And then Harlan, a little setback last year. They've been kind of running the roost in that 28-6A, and then Warren won the district last year. And how does Harlan rebound? From this year and. I know so far I think they've had a pretty good season, and I know like I said, they're in a collision course with Warren in the next couple weeks.
There's a couple other teams we'll talk about in 28. Number 10, SA Christian Lions.
Something like the girls with the boys, a great season of them. I think their arch nemesis, the Brownsville St. Joseph's team, just kind of gets in the way for them. Is this the year? They finally, knock them off and punch their ticket and get to Round Rock for the TAPS finals. So I think they have a good chance this year to go there.
O'Connor at number 9.
O'Connor, like I said, great season last year. Knocking off,
Brand 28 to get past the 27.
Knock off Brandeis, which was a surprise. One of those bracket busters in our bracketology. some expectations. So or hard going into this season. Like I said, we'll talk about the update on them so far,
Yeah,
what they've done this.
they've dug themselves a little bit of a hole so far.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that right now. Number 7, or pardon me, number 8, Warriors, unlike O'Connor, has not dug themselves a hole, and I kind of expect them to kind of move up the rankings depending on the other ways here. But I know preseason wise, Warren had a lot of expectations coming in, and I know we'll get to it a little bit later. But so far, so good.
Yeah, Warren, like I said, they were surprised last year, won the district title. How do they build upon it coming into this season? They knowing they have a target on their back, and like I said, I've gone to a couple games. Shout out to Joe. They're at Northside. Been able to watch a couple games with him. It's like I said. I think the basis of what they did last year is starting to show this year now. Can they kind of take it up a notch? And they've had some close games. I know they had a real close game with Holmes, and they kind of got lucky at one of the plays they got hit the post, but they're coached well. They work hard as a team, and they're motivated. And I think that motivation is trying to say, can they get past that first round game? And if they can, like I said, they could be a very dangerous team going deep in the playoffs.
Number 7, Bernie, the Greyhounds.
What do you say about Bernie? Like I said, they just don't stop. Going up to 5A. Yeah, they just reload. Coach Strong has them. He's just built a great program. Say, hey, at 5A, no worries here. And I expect him to also be, to contend for the district title this year. And I know it's like a little logjam up there, because you got Piper and you have, like I said, you also have like maybe a team like Birdie Champion and Swenson Valley. It's like I said, and on the Goodner Broncos team, and Alamo Heights too. So you got all those teams kind of fighting each other for that title.
Piper, the Piper Warriors on the boys' side. I think both boys and girls ranked pretty even in your top 10 solidly.
Yeah, great year last year. I mean, I was at the game last year when they gave Southwest a scare. They even had the lead too, and I think once there was a little momentum change, and that kind of hurt them a bit. And I think if that didn't happen, maybe the story would have been a lot different. But kudos to Southwest. Like I said, they found a way, and that's the thing. When you get to the playoffs, you find a way to win. But no shame on, like I said, for Piper having a great season last year. I think they're expected to do well again this season. And like I said, they're still one of the top programs there especially for their district. And we'll see. We never know. I think the luck of the draw too kind of hurt them too, because the girls kind of went to the D2 side and they went to the D1 side. So it could. Like I said, we'll see what happens this year. Do they go back to the D1 or if they end up D2, things could be a lot different this year.
Number 5, a solid Lavernia, the Bears.
Yeah, Lavernia, great. Like I said, they've been controlling the 27-40 the last few years. Great run last year. They had Progresso down. They had them on the ropes and stuff, but just kind of fell short. But then the debacle with that ineligible player and all that, and they kind of feel a little cheated out because they could end. You never know. They could have ended up going to the representing the state.
They went toe to toe with Progresso.
They went. Yeah, they just kind of ran out a little gas there. But kudos to them. Like I said, did get to see them play last year, and when they played against Kennedy, they're a good quality team, and we'll see how they build for this year. I think they're still a good favorite. They go deep and maybe get some revenge this year against some.
Number 4, Johnson Jaguars, another team that's got both the boys and the girls in the top 10.
Yeah, Johnson, like I said, they've been the perennial powers the last few years. Little setback, like I said, a little bit back, setback last year, but like I said, this year I think they'll be fine. Good quality preseason schedule, non-district schedule. I think they're going to go be one. Like I said, go toe to toe with the top programs there in 27-6A, and I think they could be one of the favorites to win it as well.
I think there's might be some surprises in 27 as well when we get to
that.
Speaking of 27, Reagan, the Rattlers, I know Jay played them. It was a 1-1 draw at the Smithson Valley tournament, but they look pretty solid and they're deep. which, as you mentioned in my time in discussing with you, is key, especially come playoffs.
Yeah, so Reagan, like I said, good season last year. They just kind of, like I said, a little fell short. They won, like I said, they won the district. They just kind of fell short on the playoffs in that second round. But like I said, expectations are high because they have a very deep team. Can they get it together this year? I know it's going to be tough. I know they've played a real tough non-district schedule. Uh, they have a tough district schedule coming up, and out of that, being a D1 school, can they get by that second round game? That's the key. If they can get by that second round, I think they can, go far and be. It's been a while since we've had a San Antonio team represent Region 4 for 6A. So I think they're one of the favorites to do so this year.
Number 2 was a mystery team. And even now, I don't know if we have an answer on them, which is Central Catholic state champions last year. Had off season that you don't wish any program to have. Results so far this year has been kind of a mixed bag, and I know we're not going to get to that, but I know you put them in at number 2, which when you put them at number 2, I was a little bit surprised, but I also understand, talent-wise, we didn't know what the talent was. History and coming off a state title gives them a lot of respect and a lot of leeway to start the season. So this one will be interesting to see where they fall in the next rankings, and when we go over the standings, we'll kind of be able to go into a little bit more detail on the record may not be what the record says. For Central Catholic.
I can tell you this after what's happened on the off the field issues and stuff. We weren't really sure what really to expect. Or what was coming back too. That was kind of the unknown, and so I actually did get to see them play, and I can tell you this: yeah, the current record doesn't reflect what they have. They're still a talented team, and going up against the top schools, I think they can. I think they're still going to be affordable opponents. The one thing you got to give them kudos is they don't shy away to play against some of the tough teams. So that's, and I think that's done on purpose to prepare them for the long grind with they're in the TAPS playoffs, because you do have some quality teams in TAPS. Especially some of the Houston teams and some of the Dallas teams. So remember last year they finally kind of go over the hump, because the last 2 years they're the kind of like the bridesmaid 2 years in a row, and they finally got that state title. But like I said, what happened on the off the field stuff, we're really kind of sure what was going to happen, but that's why, like I said, just kind of out of respect of what they've done there, the last few years. That's why I had them here, and but like I said, their current record doesn't reflect what they potentially can do. Like I said, we'll see. We'll get to see more of it once they get, like I said, get back to their TAPS district play.
And then the number 1 team, Southwest Dragons. I think Chief got a hold of you and said, "Hey, put them number 1." Shout out to Chief, and congrats on his promotion.
Congrats to him. Yeah, I think hopefully we'll have him on the show. I think he wants to come on, so he wants to talk some smack. Anytime we'll have him on. So hopefully we'll get him on the show pretty soon. What do you say about Southwest? There's their motto, state or bust, and they got to the final. I mean, that was probably one of the best state championship games that I've seen in a few years. I've seen quite a few of them. They're ranked right high up there. Like I said, probably my personal favorite one's been that Capel versus Brownsville Porter game. That's probably like the David and Goliath. But Southwest, they made it to the final, just a little short. Fell short against Prosper Walnut Grove, and the expectations are high for them. They want to get back to that, and now you have really have a target on your back, and that's the thing. Everyone's going to be coming after you. They're not going to roll over. It's can they? I know Coach Murrow has them always get some prepared and so forth. Can they? Hopefully the thing getting back to state doesn't kind of overwhelm them. You just have to take one game at a time and just kind of let it come to let things get come together and stuff. But very talented team. Like I said, and I'll look for it. They're the favorites to win their district. They've had in the last few years before they move up to more likely they're going to move up to 6A. For 2027. Like I said, I think that this is a good shot for them to get back in. Who knows? They may get that rematch with all that Prospect Grove, and we'll love to see that game again.
So we're going to switch to the standings and kind of recap, showcase, and get kind of feelings positive and negative based on the showcase season. As I think mostly districts are moving into district play. Some have already started, the bigger ones, and then some are, I think, starting next week, or most of them will be started here. But first, thank you. So, getting to the standings for that here. We'll start off with the boys this time here. Taps. And I know this is what we talked about. Central Catholic 3-8-3, but 2-0 in district. TMI 2-1. Antonian 1-1, and then the two Austin schools here. I will say part of the Central Catholic standings with the 8 losses. I think if you go to their schedule on Taps, it has when they've placed Southwest. I think they played Porter. That were scrimmages for UIL,
but they count towards the Taps record.
Counted in the Taps record for some, and I don't know how that works. That's beyond my pay grade. But I will say it caught me off guard because when I originally did this, they were 2-8-3, and they did get a win over TMI this week to knock TMI down from the undefeated. But to me, what stands out: Central Catholic 2-0, as you mentioned. TMI was a surprise last year, and looks like they're still holding on. And Antonian. I've seen Antonian play at the Northeast tournament. I don't think they're quite to the TMI because TMI actually beat Jay for that here 3-2 in a nice back and forth game. I saw Antonian before that, and to me, comparing the two teams, I thought TMI would be the better team. And of course, you've seen Central Catholic, and just with the pedigree of Central Catholic. I have not seen the two Austin schools for that here, so it's hard to give them a lot of shout.
Yeah, like I said, Central Catholic didn't shy away for their non-district schedule. Yeah, the reflection, the record doesn't reflect what they're about to do in district play. So it's done. Like I say, they do that on purpose so to get ready for this, and then, like I said, the TAPS playoffs. Not a lot of people know it's a tough grind because they play. They cram a lot of things. So I think this, playing these type of games is going to get them ready for the upcoming, because TAPS playoffs start coming probably mid February, like towards the end of February. So, and they, like I said, they try to squeeze everything in within 2-3 weeks. So, which is kind of a little strange for that, but hey, that's them. But like I said, this helps off them. And I think I said can TMI, like I said, I know they had a loss with them. Can they kind of build, maybe be a little threat, because I'm sure they're going to play again. And then Antonian, same thing. Can they go deeper in the playoffs as well? Kind of like what Central Catholic done the last few years.
So moving to D2, San Antonio Christian, one of your top 10. The Nemesis St. Joe's from Brownsville. St. Mary's off to a good start, especially in district for that here. Unfortunately for St. Anthony's, another slow start. But I really think the top 3 are the teams for this one here. I know you've got high expectation of SanAntonio Christian, but rule number one of Rafa: never go against Brownsville.
Yeah, I mean that's been their arch nemesis in the last few years. I mean they go toe to toe, but like you said, so far they're 14-1. I think they're on the mission. They say, hey, we're not going to allow what happened last year, and like I said, but they're keeping on St. Mary's Hall. I mean they're off to a good start, and I know last year they threw a couple monkey wrenches last year, and they made things real interesting. So they made it to a 3-team race. So it's like I said, I think it's still maybe it's still going to be a 3-team race. The last spot, can St. Anthony's, get a couple wins against Victoria and Laredo St. Augustine. If they can get a couple wins, they can probably get that last spot of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to whoever wins the series between Victoria St. Joe's and St. Anthony. Because I just, based on looking at the results, I think the top three, there's a clear difference. And of course, you got to be able to avoid dropping points to St. Augustine. Moving to Division 3, D5, Geneva 3-1, Holy Cross 1-1, Corpus Christi and Carnivore 1-1. Castle Hills 0-1, and JP2 out of Corpus 0-2. This one's a hard one to read. I know we like Geneva, so we typically follow Geneva. And I wish, especially when you see the next slide here, I wish they would have combined 5. And then if you look at 6, there's only 3 teams. New Braunfels Christian Academy 2-0, JP2 out of Shirts 1-1. And Our Lady of the Lady Hawks,
Lady of the
2.
Hills.
Or Our Lady of the Hills, pardon me, the Hawks here. But to me, like I said here, these two for Division 3, it would have been much better if they would have combined the two of them like they did for the girls for that here, in my opinion.
Yeah, they could have done like an 18 district there if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's.
Well, there was the Atonement Academy.
Yeah, Tony. Yeah, they dissolved. This closed down. Yeah,
and they were in both the boys and the girls, but they are not playing. And I think you mentioned that they shut down. So
yeah, they shut down the school, which is it was a shame because they had a couple good seasons the last few years, especially the girls' side. They shocked to the tap series for D3. Like I said, with Geneva here, I'm sure. Like I said, I don't think they have any issue winning that district. Like I said, I did get to see Holy Cross play against one of the newest programs we have is just Centerpoint, which actually Centerpoint's actually beat them twice already. So shout out to to Centerpoint out there. Hopefully we'll get to see them again play. And then in New Braunfels Christian, like I said, they've been a perennial power, in their district. So like I said, they've been one of the favorites, and we'll see if JP2 boys can maybe, like I said, get a win, try to make things interesting in that district race.
So moving to the ladies' side here for taps, TMI 2-1, Antonian 2-0, and then Carnivore, St. Michael, St. Dominic 1-2. So early on, this one seems pretty wide open with the Lady Apaches and TMI seeming like they might be the better top 2 teams, but Carnivore is also hanging in there as well in this early season.
Yeah, I think when it's kind of all said and done, it's going to come down to TMI and Antonian for the district title, even though TMI's got a loss already. Like I said, I think it'll come down to those two.
Antonian, by the way.
Yeah, it was to Antonian. So TMI is going to kind of have to get that, win that the game, the return match against them to kind of tie things up. In Carnivore, I think that they shouldn't have any issues, getting that 3rd spot. Like I said, it's so, but you can see it's very competitive there because they're all 1 and 2 with the other 2 Austin schools. So, like I said, as long as they can kind of knock those two teams off, I think they have a really good shot at getting into the playoffs.
Moving to Division 2, D3, Victoria St. Joseph, SA Christian, St. Mary's, and St. Anthony's. Still very early, but SanAntonio Christian 2-0, Victoria St. Joseph's, and St. Mary's 1 game out. of it here, but in an extremely too early to call Division 2 D3.
Oh, sorry about that. I had on mute.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. So San Antonio Christian, like I said, I think they'll still win the district, even though the record doesn't reflect that. Because, like I said, they played some tough non-district games. I don't think they should have no issues with it. Victoria, St. Joseph's, St. Mary's Hall. Like I said, I know they're 1-1. I think they'll, like I said, I think they'll still contend maybe for that runner-out spot with Victoria. And then, like I said, St. Anthony, I think all 4 teams qualify for the district play, so no shame on that. But hopefully they get a win. I guess remember last few years they've actually kind of surprised some of the teams in that district. So this could be maybe a rebuilding year for them.
Division 3 D4, New Braunfels Christian 4-1, San Marcos the Lady Bears 2-1, Geneva 2-2-1, JP2 1-1, Holy Cross and JP2 out of Corpus 0-4. New Braunfels Christian Academy's one of those sneaky teams where sort of here and you kind of wonder if maybe this is a year where they've got it here. JP2 I know has been playing a lot of high quality programs as well. Geneva, not quite the year that they had last year based on the early season results.
Yeah, I think this year probably could be a rebuilding year for both squads, and then I think New Braunfels Christian may have a really well experienced team, and that's why they've gone on to a 4-1 start. But like I said, things are still kind of early. Things are going to still change. Like I said, like GP2's only, like I said, they've only played 3 games. Yeah, so things can still change. Same thing with Bernie Geneva, where they have already 5 games. So they get some
game and a half
out, and they're gonna have to make up some of that. And then the big thing is gonna be playoff seeding too. So the playoff seeding could determine like who plays what in those rounds and who's got the better path to get to the final. And I think that's what the Tony did last year, and it kind of helped them go deep, go deep into the TAPS finals.
So moving to 6A, Region 4, districts 27, 28, 29, and 30. Starting out with the guys, a surprise, Churchill. And I believe they also won today. I think I saw you post that over Clark. Reagan, Lee, Johnson all started out the seasons with wins. Clark, Brandeis, Madison, and unfortunately for Roosevelt, they're in the wrong district for that year. So, but your thoughts? To me, the surprise out of the showcase season is Churchill. I don't think there's any. I know I didn't have Churchill. I thought they would contend, but I didn't have them being 10-1 or 11-1 now and 2-0 in district.
Yeah, when you have like the Erwin Howland of the district, it's like what Churchill has, with Darwin, and I mean he's carrying the team, and sometimes that happens. They have that one player that kind of starts everybody and puts it on his shoulders, and like I said, so far, like I said, they've been the surprise this year, and I think they've put the other teams on notice and say, hey, we're going to contend and and get back to kind of the Churchill of old. Because they've missed the playoffs the last few years and stuff. They've been kind of short, and this could be a breakout year for them. Reagan, like I said, the same thing with tough schedule for them. They're 9-2. They play some quality opponents. Keep an eye on Lee. I know Lee's, like I said, they've
kind of got under the radar this year.
Yeah, they're under the radar this year, but I would not take them lightly. They got a good quality keeper, and they got a good defense. I think some of the games they lost, I think a lot of them had to do because they were maybe kind of playing, just changing it up with their with their lineups and so forth. Because that's what you kind of do with your non-district games. You're not trying to. You want to see, like I said, you want to see what you have on the bench. Because sometimes. If you're going to have a very deep team, you can do a lot of things, especially in district play. But if you're just only 2-3 deep, that can kind of catch up on you, especially if you have injuries and stuff. So, like I said, I want to rule them out. Same thing with Johnson. I know that, that record doesn't reflect what they can do. So, like I said, they went to some very tough non-district showcases. Another sneaky good team is that Clark team. I know they had a
They're
loss.
0-2 now.
Yeah, they're on 2. I know they gave Southwest a little scare that Southwest tournament. They took them to PK, so I
After
wouldn't
being down 3-1 too, so they
Yeah.
came back and fought back. Yeah.
Yeah, so keep an eye on them. There's going to be some teams that are going to throw some monkey wrenches. You cannot take them lightly. I won't even Brandeis too. I know last year, like I said, Lil did put.
Well, this is a 7. To me, the top
Yeah,
7
it's just,
outside of
it's-
Roosevelt, anybody can
Mhm.
beat anybody on a given night.
Yeah, I think it's a 17 deep district and stuff. So you have to bring your A game. You cannot take them lightly, regardless of that. If they're 3-6, 2-2, whatever. Because any given night they can knock you off, and those points will a result like that could end up costing you a playoff spot. So I think a lot of this is going to come down to the wire. One thing it says, we'll see how the Churchill boys can they keep it up. Could they be the one team that they finally kind of break through and win that district title, kind of throw the monkey wrench.
And I will say, I did say Roosevelt versus Round Rock McNeil in the Northeast tournament. They played very well for about the first 60 minutes, and then the depth just wore down on them. So I know they're 0-7, and I know this is going to be kind of funny to say, but I think they're better than an 0-7 team. I just think just being in the district that they're in, the competitions that they faced. Like I said, I think like if they were in 28, I think their record would be much different. But moving on to 28, Warren 9-2, 4-0, Harlan 3-0, Soto the surprise at 3-0-1, Taft 2-1, Marshall, Stevens, O'Connor, Brennan, and then Holmes 0-4. I think two things that stick out to me: Brennan being 0-3, and Sotomayor finally kind of stepping up to the plate as maybe a contender in District 28.
Yeah. Another thing is I would not take Holmes lightly too, because they've had two 1-0 results, one against Warren, I think today too, I think against Harlan. So you cannot fall asleep in this district. The surprise this year has been Sotomayor. Got the pleasure to see him. They're going to be a very dangerous team. And they got a really great goalkeeper who got an offer already.
Colby.
So congratulations. Yeah, Colby's got an offer. Congratulations on him for Schreiner. They're going to contend, and then Harlan, like I said, they're trying to bounce back. A little disappointing season from last year. Like I said, that game versus Warren is going to be a great one. Taft, it's funny that Taft, they had that devastating
blowout loss to
blowout
Marshall.
loss, but they were missing players. But when I saw them play against Stevens, and they were clicking on cylinders, I was like, this is one team. When they get hot, they get hot, and that's what I think this year. We've had they've come some disappointing teams and seasons the last 2 years. And even last year we thought maybe they're going to break through, and then they did it. And I don't know, because of a certain situation with a certain club. I think this year, I think they have the pieces, but also don't count out Marshall. Marshall's a good team too. They got a really good striker, and it's like I said. I think this is like a lot. I think it's like a 5-team. Maybe like I said, don't count out O'Connor yet. I know they dug themselves a hole, but if they can kind of.
Gonna push back with you on O'Connor.
I know you're gonna
score
practice because they can't score, but they do have a win. It just does take that. Like I said, if they can kind of get it together, like I said, but sometimes when you dig yourself in a hole, it is tough. But like I said, you still can't take them lightly, because they
can't take them lightly, because defensively and midfield they have one of the top midfielders in my opinion in number 10.
Yeah,
I think it's Diego. Diego.
Yeah. And like I said, I know Bledsoe. Like I said, I think he'll get things together. Like I said, sometimes you start off, things don't go your way and stuff, and you're not scoring and stuff. But it just takes one game to kind of get everything to click. I think this is like a 16, like it's
Well,
16.
have you seen Taft in? To me, do you think O'Connor can beat Taft?
If it's a defensive, low scoring game, yes. If it's a high scoring game, yeah. So like I said, it's who can dictate their your game plan. The way you play. So, but I think it's still a 16 deep district that you can't take lightly. But even your number 8, your number 8. I know they haven't won the game yet. You cannot, like I said, they got 2 results that were very close, and one of them they almost had a tie with. So, like I said, just can't fall asleep in that district.
So 29 Steel. They have not started district yet. I think they start this week. Steel, Canyon, Judson, East Central, San Marcos, Buda Johnson, and I know we discussed this last year. Schertz Clemens. They got off to a slow start last year. They got off to a slow start this year. We'll see how district play comes to play, but Canyon has looked really good. Steel has looked really good. I've seen Judson play. I think they're better than last year. I don't know if they're up to Steel or Canyon's level. And then San Marcos is kind of that sneaky team that we'll kind of see how. I think they like San Marcos.
I think they knocked off Lake Travis, I believe. Yeah. So they made the playoffs last year, and they gave everything they had against Del Rio. Really, they should have beaten Del Rio last year. They just kind of made a couple little mistakes towards the end. But like I said, Steele's probably the favorite. But Clemens, they every year they always play a tough, probably one of the toughest non-district schedules, and they always bounce back. So we'll find out on starting Friday. When they start the district play, like I said, after a couple of weeks, some things are, kind of settle down. Like you mentioned about Judson, I think Judson could be that one little sneaky team that, maybe can make some noise. East Central, surprisingly, off to a good start. Now, can they equate that into the district play? We'll see. And then, like I said, Vito Johnson, not sure what they have this year. Like I said, I know they started last year. We'll see what they can do.
So San Marcos beat Lee 1-0, but lost to Lake Travis 1-0.
Okay. So
and they beat Davenport 3-0 for that here. So just to give you a heads up, and they start their first is against Clemens on the 27th here, as far as according to the Max Preps standing here. I know you mentioned that you thought they beat.
I got them mixed up on that.
But it was Lee, for that here. Do try to keep things factual here. District 30, down where you're at, actually. Eagle Pass, 9-6-2. The Laredo Schools, Del Rio, Medina Valley. Any thoughts on this district through the showcase season?
I think I know, like I said, I've seen Del Rio play. I saw him play. That's speed up top, I think, and then you saw him play because they played against Jay.
I saw him play Jay.
Yeah, and I think the biggest issue might be their defense, because I did see some things on their, they're susceptible on a lot of through balls and stuff. If they can't defend that, they're gonna have trouble on that. Eagle Pass, remember last year they were the surprise last year, and they made making the playoffs. I think so far, like I said, a little. Not rough start, but like I said, kind of promising start. I think they have high expectations. LBJ's, normally, like I said, they underperformed last year. They have a lot of talent. Actually, like I said, I was there yesterday. I talked to some of their players, and they're very eager to kind of change things around. But they do play, like I said, do play a tough non-district schedule. They'll go to the Valley, and I think they went to the Lakes Showcase. The team that really keep an eye on is Laredo United, and I actually got to see them play against Southwest. And they got to win against Southwest, and they won the tournament there. They were down 1-0, came back, equalized right before the half, and you got to give kudos to the coaches. They made a great adjustment at the half, and they got a goal early on in the second half, a nice beautiful header. And if you haven't seen it, you can see the videos on our X page. And then a beautiful set piece goal that looked like I thought the goalie was going to get it, and I don't know, maybe he kind of misjudged it. Maybe the way the ball kind of dipped, and that also wrote for them. But that's gonna, like I said, I think 5 teams in that district that could compete for that district title.
So moving to the girls' side of 6A, starting out with 27. Reagan still undefeated on the year at 9-0-1, pending tonight's action, or depending if they play tonight or tomorrow. Clark, the Lady Cougars, 12-2. Johnson, 7-2. All three won their first district. Churchill and Madison drew their first game, and then Brandeis, Roosevelt, and Lee. Lee to me is the one that's I haven't looked at their schedule closely. They're the one, when you look at the standings, probably a little bit lower than what you initially would think coming out of a showcase season here. But the top 3, I have a feeling they will be very highly ranked in the next Rafa Power Index here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great start for Reagan. Like I said, quality wins, as expected. A little surprised with Clark. I know Clark's been kind of one that's been like that 4th, 5th team that's been kind of knocking. That you still couldn't take lightly. They're off to a great start. Same thing with Johnson. Another great start's been Churchill. Remember, Churchill's been struggling the last few years. They had a coaching change this year, and they're buying into the system, and they're off to a great start. They may, like I said, I know they have they had a draw early on in district play, but that's a team they really kind of keep an eye on. You still can't count out Madison. They, like I say, year in, year out, they're very talented players. Brandeis too. They have a district loss, but like I said, they always play teams tough. The little downside is the lead. Like I said, the last few years' league has been, one of those team playoff contender teams. I think with the coaching change they had last year, they maybe lost a little bit of something, and also maybe a rebuilding year as well too. But still, that you can't take them lightly, going to any game. But like I said, this is, like I said, one of the toughest districts, for 6A. And you can probably have 3 teams that are probably going to try to win that district title.
So moving over to District 28, Sotomayor 4-0, Warren 3-1, O'Connor 3-1, Taft 2-0-1. The defending district champs, Harlan 1-1-1. Stevens, Brennan, Marshall, and Holmes. I really think this is probably a 5-team race. I think when it comes down to it, but the top. Taft losing the all SanAntonio goalkeeper, I think does make a little bit difference here, but they're showing their pedigree of staying in the top 4. But I've seen O'Connor, I've seen Warren, and I've seen the Lady Wildcats from Sotomayor. All 3 are very impressive teams.
Well, I was at the Soto O'Connor game. That Soto got that big win, and they put the district on notice. It's like, hey, we may see something we saw a few years ago. We had a 3-team race for the district title. Warren too. I saw the Warren game versus O'Connor. That was a great game too. Taft, with all the losses that they had as far as losing quality, so they're starting to keep
the last 2 years they've lost.
And they're still in the mix. I actually got to see them play it against Stevens, and that was an interesting game because they're up 2-0, and then they get 2 goals. But Steve, like I said, got to give it to Coach Gavies. They found a way in going against the win and got 2 goals and to pull off that win. And that Stevens team's a very scrappy team too. You can't take them lightly because, like I said, they do have some. There are some talented players on that squad. So if you give them a little inch there, they can sneak out a win. Harlan, like I said, I think they could be a factor. They really factor this year. Like I said, can they sneak in, and if they can knock off some, steal some points from the top 4 teams, I think they could get a good shot at getting that 4th spot for the playoffs.
Moving to 29, Clements. I saw them rough up the Lady Mustangs of Jay this past weekend. Steele, Judson, Canyon Cougars, who we talked about with Coach Cano, 2-5. Come on, Coach. They're trying to get fired week 1. San Marcos, Buda Johnson, and East Central. It's one of those. This is one of those things. especially when you talk about Canyon and you look at the schedule for Clemens. Clemens played what was it, the Edgewood tournament?
Mm-hmm. You were there. You were there, right?
Yeah, they were, and they outclassed. Like they were up 7-0 on J Mustangs and just and then they beat Young Women's in the final, and Young Women's beat what was it Alexander? What was the team from
Or
Laredo?
Brownsville Hannah.
Or Brownsville Hannah.
Yeah.
They were up 3-0, and it switched because it was windy and cold, and they ended up holding on to a 3-2 win for the Young Women's. So a good win for them here, but to me, like I said here, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of shakes out, because I think Judson's still a little bit of a mystery. Steele historically has been very solid. Clemens is, like I said here, the record they played a lot of games, they've won. Canyon on the other side's played games that may be a little bit tougher in competition. Unfortunately, came up just short in several of the games. I know you and I have talked to Coach Kano. Would he have loved to win the games? Yes, but when you talk to him, this is not a 2-5 team. And then, of course, San Marcos is one we've kind of raised a little bit of flags on
Yeah,
historically.
the girls. Yeah,
with,
they may be one.
with the new team.
Yeah, like I said, I think the two favorites are still going to be Steele and Canyon. I think Clemens probably could get that. I think they'll get the third spot. The one thing is who you play. And if you look at what Canyon played, the teams that played, they're playing state ranked caliber teams. I have some of them. I have on my state RPIs. They lost to a really good Georgetown team 1-0. That's no shame there.
Up there.
Yeah, they're at Birkerbach. Yeah, and now it can be another thing that if you lose to 5-6-0 to some teams like that, then that's that says a lot. But if you lose close games, like 2-1, 3-1. Yeah, you're showing that, like I said, you're a very competitive team, and you're competing against, like I said, a very high level and caliber program. So that's going to be that's going to in the end, it's going to help you out in the district play. I think like Steele's also played like some really tough teams too, and like I said, no giveaway. Like I said, shame on Clemens too. Like I said, they're off to a great start, but what's going to come to starting Friday is what can you equate that in the district play. And like I said, I think it's a 3-team race. I think Judson could be that. Like I said, there could be that that little dark horse within that district. Can San Marcos kind of get in there too as well?
What
Buda
about Johnson?
It's kind of tough because a few years ago they had a really great program, and then I know there were some changes there. Who knows now? They're hitting kind of hard times now with that in that program. We'll see, but like I said, for right now, like I said, I know it's kind of like a 3-team race here, but I think Judson probably end up getting that 4 spot.
And then District 30, Medina Valley 9-0-1. Laredo Johnson got a win over Eagle Pass to start out the season. Del Rio 4-4-1, but to me, Medina Valley, I think, is the one that we look at very closely for that here. Any of the Laredo schools kind of interest you as far as that can challenge Medina? Because
I think the one that may challenge. Yeah, I think the one that may challenge it will be Laredo United. I think they've played a lot tougher schedule than some of the other teams. And I think that'll be your. I think those are your 2 title contenders for this district. I think Del Rio probably be maybe your 3 seed, and that probably your 3rd best team. And then I think it'll come down to the 4th spot will probably come down to United or Alexander, maybe Johnson. So like I said, I think it'll be that. But I think, like I said, Medina Valley would probably be your D2 representative. Same thing with Del Rio, and then like I said, either Alexander United South or United would probably be your D1.
Moving on to 5A, 3 districts, 26, 27, and 28, and starting out in 26. Bernie, Smithson Valley, Piper, New Braunfels, Heights, Burning Champion. I think I have to adjust my parameters of Kerrville Tivy, Wagner, and Veterans Memorial. As much as I try to give Kerrville Tivy the last couple of years, they just unfortunately haven't done well in this district here. So to me, I'm thinking it's a 6-team race at this point for the top 4.
Yeah, it's a 16 race, but I still think it's going to be Cincinnati Valley coming up on top. They're just,
They're blowing
they
people away.
yeah they're cashing all those checks, taking names and cashing checks. So but like I said, they'll still get challenged. Like I said, you can't take Bernie lightly, you can't take Piper lightly either, and I know it's not going to be a cakewalk for them. I know they won't take it for granted. Okay, Chignin's not going to take things for granted, but they're on a mission. I think they want to build what they did last year, and I think that their goal is to get to the final and stuff. And I think they have a good shot to it. What do you say about the Bernie girls? They're being they're consistent.
Yeah,
it's a program. That 4th spot is going to come down to. I honestly think it's going to come down to what New Braunfels, Alamo Heights, and Burning Champion. That's what's going to. I think that's going to be a 3-team race for that 4th spot. And last year kind of threw things off because remember it came down to the last one and it moved, shake things up in bracketology. So I know Alamo Heights had a down year last year, which is rare. Did you ever see Alamo Heights even not make a playoff? And so this year I think they kind of get together. And same thing with Burning Champion. They've been a perennial power the last few years. The last couple of years,
this is just a stacked division, though.
You have to bring your A game, and sometimes you do have to steal points on the road just to kind of move up the standings and so forth. But tough one, and that so you have a chance to see one of the games, go check it out.
So I don't have the points yet because I couldn't find the breakdown of the wins and losses if it went into extra time. Let's see if I can try to reach out to somebody in was it Southside District for that here?
SAISD.
SAISD before that here, but so far in district, Seguin and Highlands are both 3-0. Edison, the Lady Bears, are 2-0. Brack is 1-1. Jefferson, I think, is 1-1 as well, or 1-0-1. I think they had a draw, but I couldn't figure out if it was a win or loss, so I couldn't justify here. But to me, Seguin, which you saw last year, which kind of impressed you in the Northside tournament early last year, Highlands and Edison, it's just kind of hard with the information on how the points to be able to know the exact standings for these at this point.
Yeah, I think at the end, it's probably your top two is probably going to be Jefferson and Edison. I think those are probably your top two. Seguin's going to be in the mix. Highlands, surprisingly, off to a good start, so great for them. Brack, I think they could
just missed last year, though, if memory serves me right. Highlands did. So I know they don't get the recognition as Edison and Jeff and even Seguin, but to me,
this could be for them. Yeah,
don't sleep on them in district.
Yeah, they could end up getting that 4th spot. But like I said, it's still early on.
And then in 28, Southwest Legacy, I think they're the 2 class teams. McCullum, MacArthur. Well, actually, I think it's a 14. John Jay, South San, Harlandale, Southside, and Eagle Pass win. I hate to say it, but I think this is your top 4 now. How it finishes may fluctuate. I like, both my kids go to Jay, and I wish nothing but luck for the Lady Mustangs. But they lost a lot of firepower last year, and I don't know if they have enough to get past, MacArthur, which I think is probably the weakest one out of the top 3 so far in 20.
MacArthur did blow out McCullum at McCullum, so and I guess the funny thing is like McCullum had been winning some big results, but then when that came around, that kind of changed things a bit there.
But it's still, to me, Southwest and Legacy are the top.
Yeah, well, I think honestly it's going to be Southwest. I think they're going to win the district. I think 2, 3, and 4, it could be one of those three teams. It's just, like I said, it's still, like I said, they're all within, like I said, the points of each other and so forth, and it just depends who can get the result away. It's probably going to matter, and also not losing to a team that's below you. So you can't really take, still you can't take Jay lightly, because you
No,
never know.
I just don't
can,
think. I think
like
for
maybe for a
Jay,
draw, yeah. Like I said,
they've
like, you don't
got.
want to end up with a draw with a team like that, or even like a team like Harlandale. That you
Yeah,
don't want to have a setback like that. So
I think for Jay, having watched them a couple of times, they've got 2 or 3 really good players, but they just don't have the depth, and that's the problem that they run into, and they really don't have the speed. So if they're going up against the team that kind of like Southwest that can move the ball around, and especially from side to side, that because um, that's how Clemens really beat them. Is they just go from side to
yeah.
side, and then the backside would be wide open after a period of time, and it was.
So little update here. So shout out to the Elcano girls Twitter page. So Southside actually beat Southwest Legacy.
Oh,
So that, I guess that's what I'm saying. If you cannot take, and we saw this kind of last year. There were some teams that were kind of like the bottom end that ended up pulling out maybe a win or even a draw, and then it affected you from your play, getting into the playoffs or your playoff seeding. So, like I said, you just can't. Like I said, you can't lose. Give up points. To those, to the teams below you, because that's going to end up affecting you and so forth. And then another great start going back to 6A. Shout out to the Shirts girls. They got a big win, 2-0 win over Steel. So shout out to them.
Wow.
So great win for them. So good start.
We were counting Steel already, maybe not.
Yeah. So like I said, so shout out to them. And then also an update, Legacy did beat CC win 7-0. I think I had a boys score here too. I think boys won 5-0. I think Legacy boys did beat CC win boys 4-1.
So Bernie in District 26, Smithson Valley on the boys 2-0. New Braunfels 1-0-1. Piper 1-0-2. A little bit surprising with 2 draws. Champion Tybee. Alamo Heights a little bit disappointing at 1-2 on the boys' side, and then Wagner and Veterans Memorial.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's a stacked district.
Yeah, and a lot of them play really tough non-district games and stuff, and it's like I said, it's still early on in the district. But shout out to Bernie, like I said, with Coach Strong, they're off to a great start. Good start also for the Smithson Valley boys. They've kind of last year. Some little struggles there, but they're starting to contend. Still early on, I think Bernie Champion's still in the mix. I think Piper, a little disappointed to have 2 ties. That's a little surprising there. Especially with the things they did last year. Could be, maybe the injury bug kind of maybe caught up on them. We'll see, but I think they'll turn things around. And then the Kerrville Tybee boys, after what happened, with like I said, with the tragedy they had this past year, I'm sure they're very motivated to try to, win one for the Gipper and try to get into the playoffs for them.
Moving to 27, Edison 3-0, Lanier 2-0, Seguin, Brackenridge, Highlands, Jefferson, Burbank, Sammy Houston, and then Fox Tech for that here. But I know you're big on Edison and Lanier for that here, and I know you've got some ties to Jeff, or I think Steve has ties to Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
So still early. But your thoughts on the Edison Bears 3-0 in district and Lanier right on their tail?
Yeah, well, Lanier won district last year, so like I said, I'm sure they were going to be one of the favorites coming in. But Edison, they've always been a consistent program. I know some of my former club players played for Edison, and like I said, when they had some of their best teams, like they were during that time, they said they contended for the district title. So I think those are the 2 you're probably going to see, finding it off and try to, between those 2, and then Seguin, good start for them. can they maintain that? That's the thing is, can they maintain that? And they've had some good, they've had some good wins in the past. Because I remember last year I saw them play a couple of times there at the sports complex, and
Mhm.
they're really good to sneak in some wins. Brack, slow start, but like I said, they're off to a 2-1. And we'll see how they do. Same thing with Highlands, and then I'm a little surprised with Jefferson with a little slow start too. But like I said, it's still early, and we'll see how it goes through at the end of the season.
28 on the 5A Legacy at the time, 4-0 in District Southwest, 3-0 in District J, 2-1 McCollum, 2-2 MacArthur, 2-2 Harlandale wins Southside and South Stand. I think you mentioned Legacy won again, and this would have been a regular one, so they'd be at 13 points for that here. So. I know Jay plays South Stand tomorrow, so for that here. But to me, I think this is still Southwest. Maybe Legacy can hang with them. I haven't seen Legacy play yet. I've seen McCollum. I've seen MacArthur a couple of times. I've seen Harlandale. And then I've seen Southside for that here. And I've seen Southwest. Southwest looked pretty good against Jay, and I know you've seen Southwest a couple of times.
Yeah, I think Southwest should be. I think they're still the favorite. Like I said, we'll see how they match up. But I guess with the Legacy, like I said, they still have. Like I said, they still have the pedigree. Even though Legacy did kind of beat them last year at the end, but it was kind of like a. It was like towards the end of the season anyway. It was a kind of a throwaway game, but still, it's a win's a win. So, but I think Southwest is still the favorite. Rivalry. Yeah, rivalry game. So yeah, you could kind of get hyped up for the rivalry game. That second place spot, I think, like you said, if Jay can kind of get things together, be more consistent defensive wise, they can, maybe, like I said, they only lost to Southwest 3-1. Remember last year, Southwest was blowing out teams.
Yeah.
Not the case this year. It's some of the games are a little tighter, and Southside. One of the games like Southside was beating them 1-0 at the half, but Southwest was pull out a 3-1 win. So I think the districts. Not saying that they catched up, or maybe they closed a little bit of the gap. It's a little bit more competitive, like maybe compared to what it was last year. So you can't take teams lightly, because if you put yourself on hold, and it's going to be kind of hard to kind of come out of it. So, but it's more competitive games. But I still think Southwest will win the district. Like I said, Legacy, I think they'll contend for that runner-up spot. Those will probably be your two Division I representatives, and then we'll see what McCollum do. Like I said, McCollum, last year they were towards the bottom. They're contending now. Jay, like I said, they fell a little short last year. Like I said, there's an opportunity here. But I'm a little surprised with MacArthur kind of being down too. And I know Harlandale, you saw them last year. They were they made the playoffs last year. They're a sneaky good team, but you said that I think they've kind of maybe lost a step this year. So.
I think everybody in this district took kind of a small step back. I will say for McCollum, because I've seen them play 3 times in the Northeast NISD tournament. They fell behind twice, and they came back and won both of those games. They fell behind against Jay, and Jay did come back and actually, get the win. So McCollum's a team that I think that scares me, because even if they get behind, they keep fighting, and they find ways to put the ball in the net. So McCollum, I've seen MacArthur play. I don't know if they're as good as last year. Like I said here, I've seen most of these teams play. I don't think, from what I've seen, I think each team's still trying to develop a little bit more. And of course, as we get further into district, I think you'll see teams get a little bit more comfortable. But through the showcase side here, Southwest and Legacy are the two dominant teams. And McCollum, obviously I root for Jay because of my son and my daughter go there. McCollum is a team that I really like as well for that 4th slot.
Shout out to Coach Adrian Martinez. He's a former teammate of mine from Del Rio. Oh, nice. We played soccer together when we were kids and stuff. So shout out to him. So he's doing a great job this year. So hopefully he gets them into the playoffs. I know his sons are on the team too. So shout out to them as well. So I think he had to talk to me the other day. He's a little nervous going to some of these games, but like I said, hey, just do what you need to do, and you'll get there. I think you have a good chance to hopefully get to the playoffs.
So 4A, District 4 or District 26, we have a new team. New Braunfels Long Creek, 6-3, Marble Falls, Davenport, Bandera, Canyon Lake on the boys' side, Wimberley, and then Fredericksburg. But the new team's at the top of the standings. Does that surprise you? Doesn't surprise you?
I don't think it surprises me because I think that last year they did play like a JV's type of schedule. But also, the factor is, they displayed with, like I said, splitting North Braunfels on the Braunfels High School. Some of that talent went down there. So, and that's especially the younger players. And that's a team that I think we kind of discussed. It's like they kind of keep an eye on because they may end up surprising like the favorites. I know the favorites Davenport, and then also I think Marble Falls are also one of probably your top two favorites there. And then Fredericksburg is there, which I'm a little surprised Fredericksburg's a little down this year, but still, like I said, they saw them this play so early. But really keep an eye on Long Creek. If maybe young, and like I said, but they have some talent. Like I said, how far can they go? And then it may lead to like run into an experienced team that may kind of catch up on them, because of not having that senior leadership and so forth. Then, they're one and only year in 4A, then they're going to kind of try to do some damage because we know next year they're moving up to 5A. So, but
they're growing up fast.
They're growing up fast. So, like I said, but hey, let's go out with a bang this year and here in 4A and try to. But hey, I would not be surprised. Like I said, if they found a way to get that district title, so really kind of keep it on though.
All right, so 27. I know you're a huge fan of Lavernia, but Memorial at 8-0, Cole at 9-1, Kennedy at 5-1-1, Lavernia at 4-6-1, Gonzales, which is an underrated team, 2-3. Lowling, I think, is new, if memory serves me right.
And the newer teams, yeah.
Yoakum, and then Young Men's Leadership. I've seen some of the results from Cole, and I know they surprised people last year in their first year in District 27 for that here. I know Lavernia is probably still the class of the district, but your thoughts on Memorial and Cole and the outstanding showcase period that they had?
Yeah, well, if you look at who Lavernia plays, I think they played a lot tougher non-district, tougher schedule. No shame against Cole or Memorial, no throwing shade at them. They won their games, so be it. I still think until someone can knock them off. But remember, we had a couple years ago that Memorial did challenge and end up knocking off Lavernia. So I think like I said, I saw Memorial play last year. I think they were a young team, but they made the playoffs. I think this year that might be a little more experienced team, and I think that's why they're off to a good start. But same thing with Cole. Like I said, last year was their first year playing UIL, even though they played high school soccer as a club sport, and they still play some other high school teams, some private schools. What I saw from them last year, they're a very physical team, very athletic. Had they kind of maybe fine-tuned that, and as far as the technique wise, and if it have. It's going to be very interesting. Like I said, I think this district's actually 5 teams deep. Don't count out Gonzales too, because they got some talent there as well. But like I said, right now it's still Lavernia, but we'll see once the district play starts.
Moving to 28, Pleasanton, Hondo, Floresville, Uvalde, Poteet, Somerset, Pearsall. I know AJ asked you which district is the weakest, and we both kind of agreed it was this one here. Floresville is a good team, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The rest of the teams are still young. I say young, but still developing.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think the favorite's still going to be Floresville. also Uvalde, because Uvalde's been an established program for a long time. So, and then you have Pleasanton that's been there for a while too. I mean, you got, like I said, Hondo, Petit, Somerset, and Pearsall are still fairly new programs, and it's going to take a while for them to really kind of establish themselves. But also in the outside, what are they doing outside? During the off season, are some of these players, going out and playing club and so forth? To kind of stay in shape and so forth. And I think that's what's going to take for them to kind of make this a district a little bit more competitive, and that's why they have the edge. I think that's why Uvalde and Floresville and even Pleasanton have the edge. And I know Steve Sanchez made a comment about Floresville, about especially their club soccer, that they've improved, stepped up, and I think that's helped their boys and girls program, get better. So, but I think in the end, I think it'll come down to Floresville and Uvalde. Now, how does they equate that? Can they win the first round of the playoffs? We'll see. We'll see what that happens this year. They'll be some of the bracket busters.
And 26, and there you mentioned at the start of the show, look out for Canyon Lake, the Lady Hawks 8-0, Davenport 8-1, Wimberley 8-1-1, Marble Falls 7-0-2, Fredericksburg, which is historically a pretty good girls program, 5-4, Long Creek 4-1-2, and then poor Bandera. For here, sorry Bandera, but to me, this is a stacked district with the top. I'm putting Long Creek in. They may not have earned that yet, but I'll give them a little bit of credit. Your thoughts on this district?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with Davenport, Wimberley, when they play each other, who's going to cancel each other out, or whoever steals points at their place. And that's what we saw a little bit last year, even the year before when Bernie was in the district, and that was interesting. Like I said, that was a very far burner of a district. Like I said, you have 2 state finalists in this district, and you probably have another maybe possible 2 possible state champions as well, and or maybe even third. Like I said, I'm high on Canyon Lake. I think they're a very dangerous team. And I know Davenport and everybody's not going to take them lightly. Big surprise has been Marble Falls. Marble Falls undefeated. Now, are they at the pedigree with Wimberley, Davenport, and Canyon Lake? We'll see. Same thing with Long Creek too. I think that 4th spot's going to come down to who wins the series between Marble Falls and Long Creek, and out of those two, who's out of them can steal points at, like I said, from Wimberley or Davenport and Canyon Lake. So. This is a 5, Fredericksburg. I know I saw a few years ago. They had really good talent, but they just haven't been able to kind of build on that. And and it's still can't take it lightly. And they could throw a curveball here and there with a tie and all that. But I think Long Creek and Marble Falls is going to fight for that 4th spot. But like I said, the top 3 other teams kind of be worried on them, because it's going to be interesting. But I think it's going to come. Don't be surprised we end up with the 3 teams as district champs. So because they all beat each other up, and they got to go through goal differential and all that. And maybe I have to go to the gas station there at Buc-ee's to do the coin flip.
Flip
the coin again, like
they did that last year, right? I don't know if it was this district.
Past playoffs, they're up in Plainview. Yep. They're in Amarillo after Amarillo had to forfeit all those games.
And then District 27, Cole 11-1-1. So Cole, both on the boys and girls side, looked very impressive after the showcase season. Yoakum, Lavernia, Lulling 4-7-1. And then young women's. I know they had a pretty good Edgewood tournament. Mm-hmm. Memorial, Kennedy, and Gonzales, a little bit surprising at 1-8 so far here for the girls. I know we talk about the guys. I don't remember much about the girls, but to me, like I said, Lavernia is from my memory is still the class of this one here. Could Cole challenge them a little?
I think this year it could be. It could be a challenge for them, depending what Lavernia lost from last year. Like I said, last year they had a great team. They went far. I know they lost to like I said, they lost to Davenport. I was at that game. It was a very good game there. It was a competitive game. I know the score doesn't kind of reflect on it, but it was kind of a good back and forth. It just because it unlucky, it was kind of unlucky, but they're well coached. Um, I know they're at 4-3, but I'm sure they've played some tough teams along the way. But like I said, kudos to Cole. Is how they kind of like with the boys side, had they kind of fixed a lot of what they did last year? Because like I said, I did see them play last year too. Did they fix the technical side of play? And if they did, we're seeing that on that record that they have right now. So it's going to probably be those two. Big surprise, Yoakum. Like I said, I'm not known for soccer, but like I said, I think they could be that third spot. And then Luling being a 2A school could be one of the surprises and maybe get that playoff spot. Yeah, I'm a little so disappointed in Gonzalez because I don't know the Gonzalez girls have been very competitive. It might be a rebuilding year for them, but I think as far as top of the class, I think so Liburnia. But like I said, they got to keep an eye on Cole. I think that's gonna be a great game when they face each other.
28, Floresville, Pleasanton, Hondo, Somerset, Uvalde's probably a little bit when you look at the record. When we talk about kind of fool's gold, looking at the record, I think they're better than what is Poteet and then Pearsall for that here. Pearsall is one of those teams. You told me you saw a result from them, but neither the boys or the girls have an official result on the calendar yet. So they are still listed, though, on the district scheduling. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes together. But
send your results in.
Surprises by Uvalde. Memory serves me last year they struggled as well at the start.
but Uvalde normally plays like they play
tougher
they play 5A teams and 6A teams. I know they played Del Rio. I think they even beat Del Rio this year. So yeah, that record doesn't reflect on what they've done. I still think it's going to come down to Uvalde, Floresville, and Pleasanton. That's what it was last year. The fourth spot's going to come. I think it's come down to last year. Somerset, Hondo, and then Hondo's always been knocking on the door. They just couldn't have been able to knock it down. Is this the year they finally get in and get into the playoffs? Because like I said, last year Somerset kind of took that away from them. So, and then like I said, Poteet and Pearsall just like I said, they're just not at the level right as of right now.
So that's where we're at. I don't know if Rafa's going to sleep in the hotel with the dog barking.
Yeah, I don't know why they have a dog.
But it was a good background noise of the dog barking. But I don't know how Rafa's going to sleep with the dog there. I'm assuming he'll be making a contact to the front desk. Hey, what's going on? But and it doesn't seem like a little dog either. So
oh no, I don't think so. I think there's some National Guard people here. That's probably one of their service dogs. So who knows? I do have some updates. So shout out to like I said, O'Connor girls. So some scores updates. So Lee and Brandeis did tie for the girls 0-0. Clark girls with a 3-0 win over Churchill. And then the Harlan girls with a 5-0 win over Holmes. So shout out to the O'Connor girls for the update on there for the scores. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With the storm coming in, my final thought, make sure you watch your pets. Make sure you watch your pipes, through there. If you can kind of protect them. Try to be safe. Stay off the roads if you can. Be courteous to your neighbors. If you go to HEB, don't hoard stuff here.
The toilet paper in the water.
So you hoard before the storm, not through here. But all credit to HEB. They do step up quite a bit, especially during the storms. So hopefully the storm isn't as bad as they forecast. Maybe it stays a little bit further north and dump all the snow in Oklahoma. I have no problem with that. For here, as long as it's safe. Don't get me wrong, for the Oklahomans. But to me, Rafa, get us out of here. Like I said here, just be safe, stay warm, stay off the roads, especially if it's wet and it's cold, because San Antonio does not have the equipment to protect the roads. Generally, is my understanding.
Yeah, and then my final thoughts, like I said, so far so good as far as the start of the season and stuff, and just enjoying it. And like I said, we have some surprises this year, and I'm sure that the rankings are going to be surprised. There could be a lot of changes next week and stuff. We do have, I think, I am going to be on Inside Texas High School Soccer possibly Saturday if we have power. I know Coach kind of was worried about having power, so maybe. And then I do have a state
Get a
get a
generator.
generator. Yeah, so if hopefully we'll have power for that. I do have some rankings for that, but they may change because there was a big overhaul. I can tell you that for both lists, and but now with the games kind of being moved up, so we probably maybe delay on that. But I don't know. I think we do have some host guests on that. So I think he's working on that, and then just everybody else out there watching. Like I said, thanks for the support and all that. Since like I said, we love giving credit to everyone for those videos and stuff. Like I said, we'll take ownership for that. Like I said, we'll give you props for everything you guys do, and then just ready for the SAFC season too. Like I said, make sure to watch the Fancast on Sunday. We got the preseason schedule. Kind of
We
sucks.
might do Saturday evening.
Saturday, okay.
Because the Broncos, even without Bo, are playing Sunday afternoon, and then Jason's Seahawks are playing somebody's Rams for that here. But I do want to give a couple of shout outs to RC Audio Sports, who covers District 28 at the 5A level, best any sports for that here, and then also from up in the Panhandle, Yellow City Soccer.
Kevin, stay warm. I know Kevin's probably not going out to the games there with all the snow up there.
He's already got the updates from the boards up there. Not that they're through there, but so just stay warm if you're players. Play smart. Keep your grades up. And what's life without goals? And season 8 is underway.